Well, folks, welcome back to the Preconstruction podcast. We're here live in Denver, Colorado at Advancing Preconstruction 2024, and I am delighted to welcome Scott Koontz. He is VP of Estimating at Jendoco Construction. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Good man. Me and Scott kind of got together last night at the happy hour, so we're a little bit sheepish today, but we're going to get through this. So, Scott, for anybody that doesn't know you, give us a quick idea of your background, your career.
Yeah, sure. I've been around for quite some time. I have 30 plus years of experience. I was kind of born into the industry, right? A small family business. When I did ask my father for advice, he told me, get out of the business, right? So I ended up getting an engineering degree, and when I came out, the industry was crap. Right. And it was total wreck. And so I got back in and worked for my family business for a few years. And when I wanted to grow, right, my grandfather and my father who ran it were just the opposite. They were ready to shut things down. So I left, right? I went from there and worked for a smaller or slightly larger contractor, the first estimator that this gentleman ever hired. And we did a lot of national retail work, right? Flipping restaurants and flipping stores and things like that. I transitioned from that to kind of a hybrid role, project manager estimator, working for a company that was deep into green construction and sustainability. And then from there went to work for one of the larger contractors within the city, where I got promoted to their chief estimator. I was there for about 8 years and then decided to take a move. I'm now working for an outfit, Jendoco Construction. We've been around since 1957. So 67 years in existence, second generation, family owned.
Nice.
We do about 50 million a year in volume.
Lovely.
Yeah, mostly in the institutional world, so a lot of university work, a lot of hospital work.
Good work to be in at the minute. Yeah. And the thing I like about your career so far is the amount of time spent in pre-construction and estimating. Generally, you get people that spend half their career in operations and then the other half in pre-construction, or they get taken into pre-construction because they're showing real brightness. So I always believe that if you bring the best operations people into pre-con, you've got a real, and they like pre-con, they can add real value. But you've been in pre-con and estimating for some time. How have you seen the evolution? Because we were talking about it before. When we first started, it was very different to when you first started, it's very different to the way it is now.
Yeah, when I first started, in some ways it was still drawings, right? In some ways, all of the calculations we were doing were on paper, right? And calculators and other odd things. We were highlighting drawings to do takeoff, right? Everything was very, very manual, right? You then start seeing people utilize more technology, right? And slowly that has evolved. Now you're seeing things that once were manual, right, from takeoff and calculations that are now digital, right? And we saw digitizers for a while, then we've seen on-screen takeoff, right? That's 2D, that's 3D. You can integrate that takeoff with the models, right? So the change that I've seen over those years is really astounding. I think one of my challenges is to avoid being an old curmudgeon, right, sometimes, and really embrace technology, right, and utilize some of the skill sets that my younger staff brings to the table, right.
And your firm, we talked about it before, it's got a very good tech stack. I mean, your tech stack's quite heavy. There's no Excel. You've got complete one-point solutions, but they're good solutions. How difficult is it to get them all speaking to each other, and how difficult is it to build a good tech stack?
Yeah, it's difficult. It takes a lot of time and energy. We're a smaller company, right, when you compare us to most of our competition. So in some cases, estimating departments are larger than our organization, right? We compete against Turner, right? Yeah. They've got an estimating department as big as my company, right? So that's a challenge, right? And how do you find time to set aside to go investigate, right? And furthermore, how do you insulate yourself from making a terrible decision, right? That can have a really long-term effect, not only financially, but right on the operations of a small company. So it's a real small group within our organization that tries to make those decisions. And we're very fortunate that we all kind of think alike, right? So when we go investigate a software for whatever it is, ITB solution or drawing distribution or anything, it's really start with a larger group of options, right? Trying to find what it is that we're looking for out of those, narrow that group down, interview a few, right? Get some proposals for a few, try and call a few on the table for the sales pitches that they're making, right? And then see how they respond to that, right? Because really the challenge, we've been through several integrations where the initial company was bought, right? Once, sometimes twice, and the promises that were made during that sales pitch, right, are non-existent at this point.
And that's the problem. I think I talked about it in a podcast today as well. I see a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening in this space. I mean, you saw the Precon tech floor on there. It's full of new point solutions and new firms. So there's going to be bought up. So if you're on a solution and Procore, Autodesk, Trimble buy that solution, you're kind of either looking for a new solution or you're bought in with one of those, so it's difficult to navigate that. One thing you just said as well that interests me: how do you perform like you do perform and compete with the big boys? Like what's the secret sauce of that?
I think it's being from a technology side, it's really hard to compete. Right. On the flip side, right, from a personal standpoint, it's much easier to compete. Right. We have to be very thoughtful about the clients and the projects that we go out and try and win. And we don't have a lot of time, energy, and effort to go after projects or throw comp things at people just to keep our face in front of folks, right? So it's about being very thoughtful. And then I think on every project, right, I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but we really do bring our A team because that's the only team we have, right? There isn't a B team, there isn't a C team.
Just means you're all in on a project.
Right, exactly, right, yeah. Our client base is somewhat very loyal. A lot of our institutional clients have been around or been with us for decades at this point, which is fantastic. A lot of the work we do and play in outside of the institutional world is for nonprofits, which is something just who we are as individuals. So we care, and that comes across. And then some of the work we do has a deep sustainability goal. Right, so we have a sustainability consulting division underneath the general contracting world.
Brilliant.
Right? Yeah.
How enjoyable is that, the non-profit stuff and the stuff that you really get a real satisfaction in building?
Yeah, those projects are fun, right? Because they impact the community. I spent a bit of my career flipping retail stores, building big box and other small stuff, tenant fit outs in malls all over the nation. And that was early in my career. It gets to be a bit of a grind because you're usually out there on your own. You're coming into a city and wherever, and you're fighting it out with a bunch of subs who know one another, right? So it becomes a bit of a challenge. It didn't get much personally out of that, right? So it was a very purposeful decision on my point to come back to the city, right? Get a foothold in a city that I'm from, and find a way to get a foothold into opportunities that excite me, right, for who I am as an individual. So yeah, the nonprofit stuff is fantastic.
Brilliant. And then the green stuff, the sustainability stuff, it ties into that.
It ties
nicely.
in very, very well, right, exactly.
How difficult is that now? How difficult are the demands that clients and developers put on you now when it comes to sustainability and
It's evolved. It's evolved. 15, 20 years ago, when green building was kind of just starting to get some traction through LEED. I was fortunate enough to be working for a small contractor. What was one of my hybrid roles where I was project manager, estimator, and it was important to him before it was a buzzword, right? So I had a nice background. My engineering degree, which I don't use at all, is in sustainability, right? Environmental engineering, but I've never done a lick of that. So it's kind of who I am at the core. Our clients have changed, right? At one point, it was a way to elevate them within a community, right? To let them be recognized. Now you're seeing specifically our nonprofit folks doing it because it's the right thing to do, and they believe in it, right? So they want help trying to realize that dream. Nice. The other thing we've seen is a lot of folks moving away from just certifications and moving towards delivery systems that put occupants' health and well-being above that of the built environment. And then secondly, right, we've seen folks doing a really, really deep dive into some really deep levels of sustainability goals.
Brilliant. Again, that works incredible. I mean,
it's fun.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's fun.
Talk to me now, VP of Estimating at Jendoco. What does your day-to-day look like? I mean, you know me in titles, anybody can be called anything, but what they actually do in a day-to-day can be completely different. I'm always kind of interested to find out, especially at that high level, what you get up to.
Yeah, I think in a larger company, my role would probably be a little different with the same title. But in a small company, right, I'm in it, right, on a daily basis as well. So not only am I managing folks, but I'm also right in the grind and doing takeoffs and running projects, running lead on projects, right. Our more complicated stuff I typically take the lead on. So yeah, it's a small company's need. I do some business development, right. I do a little sales and marketing. I do, on a daily basis, right. We're out trying to find tech solutions, right, sometimes. So yeah, I enjoy that as opposed to just being kind of pigeonholed into one role, right, overseeing 10 or 12 estimators, right, all doing the same grind. The pre-construction side of things is, right, there's no heroes here, right? We get very little recognition, if any, right?
I don't see many pre-con people cutting ribbons.
Yeah, there's no ribbon cutting in my world, right? Which is okay.
Yeah, no, listen, we get pre-construction estimating, they get bashed about a bit, and the blame almost puts on them, but the work that they do, to me, it's getting more recognised within the industry. I was talking earlier about the ratio of operations people and pre-construction people in these companies. Usually it was very heavy operations, so 75-80% of the company was operations, and then 10-15 was estimating and pre-construction. That's getting bigger. So the GC world is realizing that if you set a project up for success in pre-construction and estimating, the chances of success are hugely increased.
Yeah, I mean, it sets a foundation for the project's success, right, overall. I also think it's become a little more challenging during pre-construction. Historically, the delivery method was design, bid, build, right? So you got a set of complete drawings, right, complete specifications, and all you did was go hard bid that against, 6 other competitors, and that task is a lot easier than delivering something through an alternate, more collaborative delivery method like construction management or one of the other hybrid methods that we tend to use, design build or design assist, where the skill set is different, right? It's much more about managing people and managing processes than it is about takeoffs, getting subcontractor prices, throwing them all together, rolling the dice and figuring out if you won or lost at the end of the day.
Yeah, which is your preferred delivery method?
It depends, right? There's a part of me that likes the day of bid in a hard bid situation.
Yeah, it's
right?
competitive.
A little bit of a gambler, right? All of the one thing that's funny is that you can spend 2 or 3 weeks kind of preparing for that day, and even in a small company like mine, I still may have 6, 8, 9 people, right, that I'm trying to orchestrate on the day of bid, and the ugly reality is on a sizable project, most of the big decisions get made within the last 20 minutes of that process, right? Yeah. Because of when you're receiving bids, right? And people playing games behind the scenes and trying to position yourself against your competitors. So yeah, it's that part's fun. The CM side is more collaborative. It's more engaging. It's a lot softer in some ways. It's a much less contentious, in my personal opinion. But I still like rolling up my sleeves and going after a nice big project, right? With a bunch of random people and trying to figure out our strategy to be, low but not give away the farm.
Problem solving, that's what you want. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the gambler in you is like high stakes poker when you think about the hard bid stuff. But the collaborative stuff, I mean, it's something ridiculous. Like 87% of projects right now are under a collaborative delivery method. So it's just becoming more popular and more popular and more popular. The institutional stuff, what's the preferred? What do they prefer using?
It's kind of a combination still. Some folks who we have on the institutional side, you would think would be more collaborative than they are, right? Based on who they are. But they still deliver a lot of projects, design, bid, build. And then every now and then it'll surprise you. You'll get like a developer who's historically been very cost driven, who wants to expand on their collaboration processes, right, and pushes the envelope in the other direction. And then there are folks who are only comfortable in kind of one arena, right, based on who they are, right, and it's changing. It's always evolving. And in some cases, Pittsburgh's a pretty small market, so we know most of the clients. We know most of our competition, which is good and bad. So it's always changing, I think.
Brilliant. And then that in itself, you just mentioned there that clients they prefer different methods. That in itself causes a headache because you don't know what information that they want or how they want to communicate with you, or do they like visual displays of the project schedule and the project costs? How much work is involved in that?
It's incredibly time consuming. The ugly reality is that even in a collaborative CM style delivery, there's still a level of competition, right? On the front end, we're competing for fee, for pre-construction services, right? And a staffing approach, right? So there's still a level of competition there, which in some ways, right, still adds a level of complexity and how do we get it done with limited resources under this budget. But at the end of the day, I still think it's a more fun way to work.
Yeah. You mentioned pre-construction services there. It's a common theme that I have had on the podcast, probably recently in the last 10 or 15 episodes, is this idea of Rycon. I think one guest basically said, listen, if I can get 35% of my pre-construction services costs back, I'm happy. Is that kind of what you're seeing in the market?
It's a market decision, right?
Yeah.
As a whole, I think as an industry, we're self-abusing in that way. The pre-con, the estimating side, because it's been a commodity for so long and we've given it away, it's undervalued, right? So the challenge becomes, how do you add value to it? Right? How do you make people appreciate what you're done and appreciate all the work, energy, and effort, right, that can go into it? At the end of the day, it's such a small percentage of the overall project cost, and we still manage to bugger it up a bit, right?
Oh, very good. Yeah, I think it's a fight that everyone's going to have to take, as in everyone's going to have to demand some sort of fee for pre-construction services to normalize it and they standardize it. And I can see it happening, but slowly.
Yeah, Rycon's tough, right?
Yeah.
It's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to play the game, right, just to get your foot in the door. But we have to be, as a smaller company, we have to be very thoughtful about the services that we're willing to provide. And downstream, right, be very cognizant of our operations side, because we're not taking on too much work, so that we don't take on too much work.
Yeah, that's what you don't want. You're not
so
able to deliver.
I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time giving away services, and then at the end of that, not have room in operations to actually complete the project.
Scott, this has been amazing, honestly. Your insight, obviously 30 years of experience, it's been incredible. Really appreciate you coming on. If there is someone that's been listening to the podcast or watching the podcast and they want to kind of pick up on where you're leaving off, where's the best place to contact you?
You mean my contact information?
LinkedIn, your email address?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's Jendoco Construction, and then my email address is first initial of my first name, so S, and then that's KOONTZ @jendoco.com. That's JENDOCO.com.
Brilliant. And I will put that information in the show notes as well, folks. It'll be there. You just click on it and they can follow up. Yeah. Scott, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff.